we have talked about how the body keeps score. We talk about that a lot. And we've
Mhm.
talked also about trauma and how trauma affects us and it can trigger autoimmunity. And
Mhm.
so, with that in mind, I'm going to ask a serious question. You mentioned this a little bit at the beginning before we started the episode today. But if you're willing, I would really love for you to explain what happened in 2023, because we know it was an incredibly difficult season for you. You lost your sister and your best friend within a short
Mhm.
period of time.
Mhm.
How did those
Mhm.
losses affect you physically and emotionally?
I'll answer this more directly than the last one without backing up. In the spring of 2023, my dearest lifelong friend, who I grew up with here in Ogallala, died of pancreatic cancer. And 6 days later, my sister died from the complications from a fall. She was experiencing congestive heart failure, and she broke bones, and it exacerbated, and so she died very shortly after. 3 weeks later, and I had been so sick. In fact, I had not been able to come to spend time with my sister when she was dying because I was so sick, and I didn't know why. And it wasn't lupus. I had my ANA tested. I was like, maybe it's lupus, maybe it is back, right? But it wasn't. So 3 weeks later, I was actually in first place in a national cooking competition to benefit the James Beard Foundation when I was diagnosed with celiac. And I'm a food writer, so it was identity loosening. I was flattened, literally. Couldn't pick my head up off a pillow for a while. It was very hard. When I finally was able, so a couple things really helped me. One was finding groups, Facebook groups, right, for celiac. That helped me a lot. And to be able to put it out there and just say, I felt so alone. I'd lost my people. Like my friend Marcia was an RN. So like she's the one I'd call and say, like, I have celiac. What the hell? Like, what is this? Tell me what's happening. And of course, my sister was my sister. So I would call and say, right? So I'd lost my people. And my marriage was rough at that point too. So I really was alone. And I joined the celiac group. And then someone in the celiac group actually turned me on to a group of, it's led by AARP for women over 50. And that was great, but it was still online. It was still Facebook, So I decided to start a local group in Denver. And at the time I called it the Metro Denver Ethels because Ethel was the founder of AARP, and that was like the source group. So that group grew to 150 members practically overnight of women over 50 in Denver. And it's an in-person group. And because I have celiac, then I set everything up. So I started doing different times and different days, but we've ended up on Thursdays. We meet every Thursday, not once a month, because the idea is connection, right? Well, I've made wonderful friends to this. In fact, my friend who wrote the intro into my book, she happens to be a registered dietitian and a therapist. So she wrote the intro to the cookbook. She was amazing through the whole thing. So that helped me incredibly. I was able to make connection, and I meet with these women. Now we have regularly 15 people every Thursday for coffee or for lunch. We are agendaless on purpose. We're there for connection. Once I was able to look up, I realized that I was grateful